I had someone ask me recently about why I seem to be avoiding BMW motorcycles, or why they're never on my list of bikes that I'd like to buy. So I thought today I'd explain my history of BMWs and where they fit for me, if you like. So I've had two BMW motorcycles, and the first was a BMW K1300S and the second was a BMW R1200 RT, and both were great bikes, and as they stood as a bike they were both awesome. The K1300S was a sport tourer with oodles of grunt, oodles of power. It was pretty comfortable on the highway, and I would commute from Ballarat to Melbourne on it for work. I didn't ride it in every day, but regularly. And it was a really good bike. And the only reason why I sold that bike, or ended up trading in for the R1200 RT, was handlebar vibrations. It had this buzz through the bars at about 4,000 RPM. Was it 4,000 or 3,000? I can't remember. This is going back 12 years ago. But it had this buzz through the bar, just sitting right on the speed limit on the highway. That would put my hands to sleep. And I tried different grips, and I bought heavier bar end weights and tried all sorts of things to get rid of it. And I just couldn't seem to tune it out of the bike, and it was always there. And as I was doing a lot of highway work, going backwards and forwards to Melbourne, it just got to a point where it just got too annoying, and I thought, that's it, I've got to sell the bike and buy something more suited to touring. And I then traded that bike in on the BMW R1200 RT. And where the K1300S never gave me any problems mechanically, it was always really good, and engineering wise it was really well designed. The way the airflow was over the bike at speed and things like that was really good. It was really well thought out, and you could tell that engineering wise it was really good. And the same applied to the R1200 RT. It was fantastic on the highway. It was smooth, it was comfortable, wind protection was fantastic, and even in high winds like we are today, it was fine, to handle it, no problems at all, and it was just a really nice place to be, and I actually loved the bike. That was up until I had my first service. Now the first service was at 1,000 kilometres from memory, and I took the bike in for the service, and I was in love with the bike before I took it in for its first service, and everything was just perfect. And so I took it in for its service. I was working in Melbourne. I rode to Melbourne, took it straight into the dealer first thing, and then made my way into work, and then picked the bike up after work and rode it home back to Ballarat. So each way is about an hour and 40 minutes each ride. And on the way home, riding it home, the engine started to feel like it was running a little bit rough. And so I kept riding, and by the time I got home, the engine was running really rough, to the point where I thought, well, there's definitely something wrong here. And I parked the bike in the garage, got off the bike and had a look, and one of the header pipes was black, where the other header pipe was its normal bluing, golden colour, whatever it was. One side was black, and I thought, okay, we've got a real problem here. So I rang the dealer next morning, told them what was going on, and they said to write it back. I asked if it was fine to write it back, and they said yeah, it'd be fine. So I wrote it back to the dealer, which is an hour and 40 minutes back into Melbourne, and they took it over and checked it over. So that afternoon I went and picked up a bike again, and it turns out for the first service they've got to do a throttle body syncing just checked the throttle bodies for being matched up, and somehow it had gone out of sync after they'd checked it. And I don't know, what happened. I do have theories now. I've been thinking about it years later, what went wrong. And after that point, the bike was never the same. It never ran as smooth. It just wasn't, engine-wise, wasn't as nice to ride. And it would drift out again. The throttle body syncing would drift out over a few months, to the point where I end up buying my own mammometer and resyncing the throttle bodies myself. I do it every 6 months or so, just sync them back up again. And I don't know what was wrong. I don't know if a screw had been threaded or something. It was just working its way loose or whatever. But after that first service, it was never the same. And then I had an issue where my first service was 1,000 kilometres, and then at about 1,500 kilometres, 1,500 kilometres, I was riding to work in Melbourne, and it was like about 2 degrees Celsius, so I had the frost warning lamp on the dash. I was riding along at about 110 kilometres an hour, and had the cruise control on, had the electric grips on, the heated seat, everything was on, and I'm riding along, and all of a sudden the back of the bike sort of came around like this. The back wheel just started spinning, came around, and felt like it was right just beside me here. It just sort of came right around, and it happened so quick. I didn't have time to do anything, but then thankfully the traction control kicked in and the electronics kicked in and straightened the bike back up. And I just kept on my merry way. And I thought, wow, I must have hit some black ice or something. This is 110 kilometres an hour, mind you. I must have hit some black ice, and I got away with it. That was lucky, the bike sort of saved me electronics-wise. And I thought, wow, that was great. Until about a few days later, I pulled up somewhere, put the bike on the side stand, and as I'm getting ready to leave the bike, I noticed there was smoke coming off the exhaust pipe. And I thought, that's a bit odd. And it was just coming off just where the exhaust pipe from the engine goes into the start of the muffler, into the front of the muffler. So I had a good look, and I could see there was oil dripping off the rear shock. It had the electronic suspension, the self-adjusting electronic suspension, oil dripping off the rear shock onto that exhaust pipe and was burning off. And that's when I sort of started putting 2 and 2 together and realised that that few days before, where it had the rear had stepped out, was probably because the rear shock dumped its oil onto the rear tyre. And this is at 1,500 kilometres, so brand new bike. And so I thought, okay, I rang BMW again, and they said, yep, bring it back. It's, I said, only way I can get it back is to ride it. So they said, yeah, that's fine, write it in. So I rode it back to the dealership, and sure enough, the rear shock had shut itself, the ESA, and needed replacing. Now, yeah, from my point of view, I've never ever had a bike that had done that. Like, I've owned every Japanese bike I've owned. I just buy, ride, and service. And even the Triumphs. I have owned the Triumph America, Triumph Thruxton. I just buy the bikes, ride them, service them, and that's it. Nothing goes wrong. It's just super reliable. So when one of the most expensive bikes I'd ever bought, this at the time, the BMW R1200 RT cost me $34,000 on the road with everything it had on it, which was, the Kate 1300S was approaching that by the time I put bags and things on it, so it too was one of the most expensive bikes I'd ever purchased. And for, I would have thought that when you're buying a bike in that price range, everything is perfect. You're going to get super reliability, you're going to get the best made parts, you're going to get the best suspension, best everything. And it was a bit of a surprise to see that the rear shock had let go after that short amount of time. So I spoke to a service manager, and they said, yep, that gets us all under warranty, which is another thing. It's great that things are fixed under warranty, but I don't like having to take things back for warranty claims, you know what I mean? I just like to buy a bike, ride it, service it, and that's it. Anyway, I went to pick up the bike that evening after work, and I spoke to the service manager, and the service manager was in a bit of trouble because the dealer principal at BMW wanted him to recondition the shock, not to replace it. This is on a bike that costs $34,000 with 1,500 kilometres on the clock. And the service manager said, no, I'm not doing that. And he put a new unit on it, which I think was the right thing to do. But he'd copped a lot of grief from his employer for doing so. So I don't know what happened to him long term. But I was super appreciative that he did the right thing and made sure I had a brand new part on the bike. And so I rode that bike around what I normally do is I buy a bike, ride it for about 25,000 kilometres, and then sell it or upgrade to another bike. And I find I get really good resale, get good use out of the bike, and really good resale by doing that. So I did that same thing, and got the throttle body syncing to a point where it was pretty settled, and rode it around for about 25,000 kilometres and sold it. And after that, I lost interest in buying BMW motorcycles. I bought the Triumph Thruxton at the same time I owned the R1200 RT, and found that I was having so much fun riding the Thruxton. This was the 900 version. That I just end up riding that all the time, and so I was happy to see the 1200 go. And so now, it's now, what was it, 2010 model R1200 RT I had, is now 12 years later, 2022, and I still can't bring myself to buy a BMW. And I've looked at the R1250 RT, and I really, really, really like the bike, and I think it'd suit me down to the ground. But I'm wary of it's like BMW engineering is spot on. It's just their build quality is not quite. I don't know if they do the same amount of testing as the Japanese manufacturers do to ensure every single part they have on the bike is rock solid, reliable. And there's a guy on YouTube I watch from time to time, Sean Smoke, and he's a BMW mechanic and a Indian mechanic, and he works for a dealership, and they sell a range of motorcycles and Can-Am Spiders as well he does. And I have seen him replace suspension units even on later model BMWs, and he's a proper certified BMW technician. And also even on the K series BMWs, I've watched him replacing gearbox components which were faulty, and he's had to go through and do a whole batch of K1600s replacing gearboxes, components in the gearbox. And just little things like that sort of are little red flags for me, and sort of even on the newer BMWs, they still seem like they haven't got these little issues sorted out. So I really like the bikes. I think engineering wise they're fantastic, and they ride fantastic, performance is fantastic. But one thing I can't do is warranty claims and getting things fixed, and that just drives me crazy. So I just can't do that. And that's also part of the reason I was just talking about electric bikes in my previous video. A big reason why we bought the Kona EV over the Tesla Model 3, because even though the Tesla Model 3 is a little bit more expensive, but they're pretty similarly priced really when you look at the grand scheme of things and the big picture. And by the way, the Kona EV is my wife's car. This is my vehicle. She has the Kona. The thought of reading up reviews and people's experience with Teslas, I reckon Tesla are fantastic, and I love the vehicles. They still have issues where you've got to go back to get little things fixed. They're covered under warranty, but little defects in build or things like that. And I thought, no, I can't do that. That would drive me crazy to buy a brand new EV and then have to go back getting little things fixed or repairs. Or it seems to be like in America, the culture is different than here in Australia. Like in America, people will buy vehicles like Jeeps and things like that, and having things repaired under warranty over their 4 years of ownership is par for the course. Whereas it's just not something that Australians like to do, I feel. That's just me. You just want to buy a car, drive it, service it, and that's it. It should be right from the factory when it leaves the factory, or it comes from the dealership. Everything should be right, and that's it. I think that's why I've always bought Japanese vehicles, and now the Hyundais are also very good for that sort of thing. You just buy it, drive it, service it, and that's it. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. The topic was BMW motorcycles and why I don't include them in lists of bikes I'd like to own. Long story short, I think they're fantastic motorcycles. I think if you bought one, I'm sure that you're riding around enjoying it and probably having trouble-free ownership. But for me, it's just in the back of my mind that I don't want to go through that again after spending a lot of money on a motorcycle. So that's it. Thought I'll just fill you in on my BMW experience. If you've made it this far, thanks heaps for watching and also for supporting the channel, and hopefully I'll get to see you all again in the next one. Bye for now. And I apologise for the wind if it's been annoying in this video.